Hey guys, before we get started today, we wanted to take a minute to thank you, the listener, for tuning in and proving you have a growth mindset. Our mission is to curate information from the top influencers around the world. We provide you with real, actionable steps on how to improve in all areas of your life, whether you own a business, are a C-suite exec, have an entrepreneurial mindset, or you're just starting your journey of self-development. Professional development is all about growth, and if you're not growing, you're dying. If you enjoy this content, please help us help others by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to the Professional Development Podcast. Today is Wednesday, May 19th. We are on episode 38, and today's topic is saying yes to saying no. I came up with that. I don't know.
Just now, right?
No,
Yes.
I actually stole it off somebody
no.
else's, but I feel like it would be really good for like SEO purposes, and it catches the eye. So I stole that title.
Yeah.
I totally missed it because I'm making a boomerang Instagram.
Well, don't tell anybody we stole it.
Hopefully you got the quote. So before we get into the topic, this is actually the first episode we've been on to where we didn't have a guest, and we've actually got everybody in office. So fellas, what's happening?
We're in the office today.
We are in the
This
office.
is the office.
Yep.
It's the lab.
No WFH today.
No WFH.
I had to think about
But
that.
it has to be, what, 2 months?
It's been at least a month and a half.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
It's been since Frisella.
Yeah.
So-
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So then, yeah. So it's
So, I
been
mean,
a month and a half.
It's weird. Like, we don't have anybody
That was
cool
almost
on
exactly
today.
a month. That was
Speak
that
for
was
yourself.
on that was on
Is that me?
420
Well,
when we
we-
were blazing
well, we
at the
also-
first form.
We also went through like a tear of like Frisella and then Ben Newman and then Selk. So, but yeah, what's been going on? Business, personal, what's up? I know we all were on the 75 hard train, and then some people fell off the train. So I guess let's just address the elephant in the room.
I mean, did you actually fucking think I was going to do it?
I did.
I mean, let's be real.
I had faith in you.
I actually did too.
Well,
yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I
was,
did not. I knew. I honestly was trying my damnedest to go longer than Dan. And then I was eventually just like,
once he was like,
So
fuck
was-
it, I was like, I'm fuck it.
So were you officially
so-
the one to?
Yeah. So what?
Yeah, I was out.
What people
Okay.
don't understand
Technically, I was
is,
out
yeah,
first.
Brad was out first. Brad's been killing it at work, and he'll talk about that a little bit apparently. But he messaged us in the group text and said, "I just fucking got done with work. I'm fuck 75 hard. I'm having fried chicken tonight."
yeah,
and then
some Dunkin'.
Dunkin'
some
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Not a sponsor.
Yeah.
Not yet. Not a
Not yet.
sponsor yet.
And it was awesome. I was like, this is so amazing. Like, why was I trying to do 75 hard again? Because I just wasn't in the right mindset for it. Like, I wanted to do it because we were trying to do it. But just like, I get it. Like, it's a mental toughness challenge and everything. But like,
Well, that's the thing is he says it's not a challenge, and so we kind of made it a challenge.
Yeah.
But I will say the first time that I failed, it was a competition between everybody. And this time I actually wanted everybody to succeed. So it was just a little bit different like mindset with it. And, for me, I'm still going to do pieces of it. It's just all of it isn't important to me right now. And I have to say no to some things, hence the fucking podcast today.
that I'm at the same spot as you. It just, it wasn't, all the pieces of the puzzle weren't aligning in life for me right now.
Yeah, and then for me, it's really funny, and we'll get into it because it's a perfect day to talk about saying no to things, right? Because for them, they said no to it for different reasons, and for myself, it's helping me say no to some things that are actually really benefiting me. So it's going pretty well for me. What about you, Bob?
I mean, going through it the first time, the hardest part is those first like initial few days, getting through that, getting that first workout done. Because to me, the hardest part is always timing out those workouts. The hardest part for me also has been the no pizza and Ben & Jerry's, because that was my weakness from the time the last one ended to just 24 days ago. Because I love my Dogtown frozen pizzas, and I eat a lot of Ben & Jerry's. So this has actually been huge for me to like feel like I'm back on track.
Yep.
So I have been
that-
saying no
that
to the bad things.
Body fat percentage is looking good.
I'm melting.
Bob's melting away.
Almost under 10. I'm trying to catch Cresco, but every single time I lose more, he's
Me
like,
and
I'm
Dan
at
are-
6.5.
We're racing to 20. 30.
Hey,
I said 20 and then
they're
I
racing
knew
to
I
I knew I'd be able to beat Brad in some race.
They're racing.
and I beat him in both of those.
Hey, I started at 30% body fat whenever I started this whole journey in June of last year.
I actually
so
have no idea what mine is.
Yeah. Well, Dan and Brad are racing in the opposite direction.
as long
right
as you're
now.
happy.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess the biggest thing to take out of this is we had, with this challenge that I don't think we officially announced, the loser of this ended up having to do an open mic night stand-up. So Brad is going to have to do it because he edged out Dan. Dan was just
Just barely.
Dan was walking
I was
twice
there.
a day
Just treading
just to
water.
make sure he lasted longer than Brad.
I got sick of doing. I was walking at like 10:30 at night.
I was kind of
Like, just to
hoping.
get it fucking done. Like fuck, everybody's sleeping. I gotta go do.
Maybe
this
maybe 9 o'clock at night, Brad will text us and say he's done.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping that Brad was just fucking around, like holding like a Dunkin'
Ooh,
Donuts that
that
was
would've
actually
been a
Cassie's.
great idea.
And then you were like, I never actually fucked up.
Shit. I actually thought of that.
Did you?
I actually thought that was.
And then we went.
But he took a picture with Duncan and I was half drinking. So
Yeah.
so like
You can't get a milkshake. and
right.
not finish
So
that
here's the
motherfucker.
thing. I thought it was a setup for a brief second.
I really did. I thought the whole
I really
time it
did.
was. And then we went to
you motherfuckers
Nashville
would do
to
that.
play in a volleyball tournament. Was that just last weekend?
Yeah.
And we were sitting there at this Mexican restaurant. We ordered our grilled fajitas, all that stuff with veggies, and like. Matt, I knew you were looking at the margaritas. You were talking about them. I was like, this motherfucker's gonna get a
I was
margarita.
like, ooh, I fucking love Paloma.
I had a dream that you had to drink something.
You what?
I had a dream that you had a drink.
Had a drink?
Yeah.
And then, so when I was in one of my clients' office, they know that I'm doing this or whatever. And this will be the last thing I say about it. But this guy was like, oh, because I'm still going to like go out with my friends and just not drink or whatever. He's like, dude, I'm going to just fucking slip vodka in one of your water drinks.
Oh,
so you
you're
lose.
fucked.
And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I wonder if that
What's
would
his
count.
name?
No, I think that.
Gonna
I'm
pay him
fucking telling
extra.
you.
I don't think that would count.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
If somebody like did that.
Good. You hear that, guys? Just don't
Don't-
show me that
God
I'm drinking.
damn,
and
dude,
I
that's
can
a-
get
that's a
fucking
scenario.
Feel free to quote unquote
What would
roofie
Priscilla
me.
say on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody slipped, like literally, just so I would fail.
A lot of gray lines. A lot of gray lines. So anyway, we'll get on to a couple of things, a couple other things here, just because we don't want to talk about 75 hard too much. But had to throw that out there. We will for sure video record. Both Brad and Dan said he's going to hop on the train for the open mic night as well.
Judging by our stats, we'll probably just fucking kill it.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll probably get a show.
I would
of
think
comedy.
that people listening laugh at my shit the most.
I hope that you know what we should do is we should get some of the listeners to be like, hey, check out my Instagram profile and roast me.
It'll be a
like they
closed
do
door
on
event.
Twitter.
It'll just be us four and a mic. I'll rent out the whole fucking place.
Pay people not to come in.
Yeah, every seat's paid for by me.
I bought every ticket tonight.
Yeah, no shit. Oh, well, but we'll for sure put that on the YouTube channel. We'll put clips on Instagram as well. We'll make sure everybody's mic'd up with our stuff. So be on the lookout for that. Let's get into quotes. So what quotes do we have around saying no?
I'll start. So I have one here from Henry Cloud, who wrote the book Boundaries and Changes That Heal. His quote is, "Our opinions and thoughts mean very little if there is nothing we disagree with." And I thought that was an interesting one just because, I thought a lot about Brad and Dan with this because you guys are some of the most like incredibly outspoken people that I've ever met. And I mean that in a way that's good because you guys, like, you challenge people all the time. And if we don't say no to things or if you don't have an opinion, it doesn't mean shit. If we just agree with everything that everyone has to say, we're going to be in a society full of a bunch of pussies.
Yeah.
And so I thought that you guys would like that one, especially today.
Cool. I'm going to say this just because I feel like Brad might end up taking this. It's only saying no that you can concentrate on the really important things. And that's because it's a Steve Jobs quote.
No, not me.
No? Okay. So
I had a Steve Jobs quote, but
One of your
there's a couple
55,000?
of them. So one more time, it's only by saying no that you can concentrate on what's really important. I think that's super relevant, especially having on Ben Newman, especially having on Dr. Selk, who emphasize like focusing on, that Pareto principle, like the things that are going to move the needle for you most. And so in order to focus on those things, you got to learn to say no to stuff and you got to understand how to prioritize. I really like that quote.
So mine's from Stephen Covey. You have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage pleasantly and non-apologetically to say no to other things. And the way to do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. So pretty similar to the Steve Jobs ones you just said. So
Yep.
kind of along the same lines.
So I was actually reading a blog, and Tim Hartford is just some fucking economist, but he had a good one. Every time we say yes to a request, we are also saying no to anything else we might accomplish with that time. So that's an opportunity cost thing where, by saying yes here, what are you giving up, right? Like you're giving your time to somebody else's request or to an activity that doesn't move you towards your goals. And so that's why I like that.
I like that. It's almost like Newton's law-ish, right? Every action, equal opposite reaction.
Yeah.
So it's like every time you say yes, you're actually saying no to something.
Right.
So it's good to understand what you're
Or
saying.
vice
yes.
versa, right? Like if
Exactly.
I say no to something, I'm saying yes to whatever else comes up. And you give up a lot of opportunities by saying yes to all these different things, when if you would have said no, a different opportunity might have popped up and you might have been able to go after that. So
For sure. All right. Some good quotes.
Hey, before we jump into it, you guys see Bitcoin price plummeted today, right?
well, no, it bounced back.
Did it bounce back? Not all the
39.
It's
way.
bounced back a little bit.
Okay, but
Did you buy the dip?
No, I don't believe in it. But did you guys see what Portnoy said the night before about cryptocurrencies?
No.
He basically is saying that it's the new Ponzi scheme of, if you get in at the ground floor, you're going to make money. So I think he's like the first person to like actually call them out like that. So I was pretty interested because Ethereum, everything went down today.
It could
but
be a big
Yeah.
reason for the dip. I mean, people watch that kind of stuff.
for
oh,
sure.
Dude, Elon Musk
Musk
says-
controls
Well,
that.
if you have
something.
influence, you can control the dip, just like Gary Vaynerchuk with sports cards or with NFTs now that everybody's fucking talking. I think that's
That's
also.
so crazy.
I think NFTs are these digital fucking assets that I would rather have a physical sports card or
100%,
Pokemon
yeah.
card than a digital one. Like, what the fuck's the point? I can't. It's not
What are you gonna
tangible.
do with it? Yeah.
And so I think that there's so many, people with personal brands, whether they're all famous, whether they're athlete, whether they're celebrity, whatever, and they're creating these like pictures of themselves and then selling them for all this
It's
money.
bizarre.
And it is wild, and I don't understand it enough to talk to it.
Yeah, we need
You
to
know,
get a crypto expert on.
and-
So if anybody out there knows a crypto expert, send them our way.
Yeah, we'd love
Because
to
the
talk
thing
to
I don't
them.
understand is if all this stuff is a scarcity, right? With cryptocurrencies, there's only so much of it. How does it ever go fucking down?
Yeah, I don't get it.
Well, my problem with crypto, and I mean, this podcast isn't about crypto, is just, people are buying it as a commodity, but it's supposed to be a currency. So when are we going to start paying for shit with this? And there's businesses that are taking this as currency, but it's like, I can't accept Bitcoin unless I'm going to cash it out the same day.
Exactly.
Because if I take one Bitcoin for my services and I get 40 grand, and then the next day it's worth 32 grand, I could lose money because the cost of goods on that product or
It's
that
like being,
service.
to me. So I don't understand it. I probably understand it the least of anybody on this podcast. But just to what you're saying, it's like, okay, well, what if I have a stock, right? What if I'm like paying for something with a stock one day? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's
Yeah.
the same concept, right? Because like you said,
That's
it
what
could
you
go
think,
up
yeah.
and down.
Yeah, and if anybody's listening that knows way more than we do and
Yeah,
thinks
send them
we're
our way.
dumb, or roast us on it, like we want to know, we want to be educated. And going into books, which I think Matt was getting to next, Brad, aren't you going to start a book on crypto?
Yeah, I am. Well, it's on blockchain, but same
Yeah.
same idea. So that's what I'm reading. What are you guys reading now?
So I am reading Dr. Selk's book, Relentless Solution Focus. I've been doing the 10 pages a night because of 75 Hard. And I love it. I do love it. And I'm also simultaneously listening to, what's the book called, Dan? It's
Breaking the habit of being
Breaking the Habit
yourself.
of Being Yourself, which gets way, way deep into the science of quantum physics. But it's good. Like it's really takes a long time for my dumb brain to comprehend it.
That book, I had to read every page like 3 times.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
Yes.
The
So
fucking-
I think I might put the pause on it until I finish Dr. Selk's book and then actually get that book to read it because it's a lot to be taking in 2 things. But I'm reading Dr. Selk's book, Relentless Solution Focus. Hey guys, not just because we had him on the podcast, but his book is fucking money. And
Yeah, it's
Brad
really
read
good.
the whole
Yeah,
thing.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm reading the exact same thing right now. So
You're reading Relentless Solution?
Yep. I bought 2 copies. I'm going to give another one to a guy on my team.
What'd you
Very
think
nice.
of the compound effect?
I love that book, man.
Are you plugging any of that into your life?
So the Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. One of the big. I mean, there was a
My
lot of
favorite book.
takeaways. Dan's favorite book. One of the things that I love from that is the little tiny notebooks. I have like 12 of them sitting at home. So if you guys need one, let me know. I got 12. I'm actually keeping track of everything that I spend money on. So to try and help understand where my money's going to, and obviously with like not drinking and stuff like that, that's usually where all my money went to. And now I'm getting a better idea of where that money's actually going to. So I'm just going to try and be a little bit more conscious of where I'm spending money and where I could save some too.
Nice. Love that.
And then I had Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
Did you
Right.
finish that?
No.
It's a
But,
big
I mean,
book.
I'm almost there, but I'm still reading it and it is really good. And what's cool is like there are challenges within that book. But it's there's a lot of stories in it, and I've never been into books with a lot of like personal stories, but it makes me want to read something on like a Warren Buffett or even like Henry Ford or what, like their autobiographies and stuff. So I think I'm going to start reading more about their lives and seeing what kind of consistencies I can pull out
Yeah.
of these titans
Also, like what we talked about on our mentors one, silent mentors, right?
Yeah.
Hearing their stories, getting into the mind of them. Like you were talking for like 2.5, 3 weeks straight about that David Goggins book. So sounds like I'm gonna have to pick it up eventually.
It was good.
Yep.
So
Cool. Well, that's what we got there. So let's get into it. And so saying yes to saying no, let's just start round table here. Why is it important to say no?
I think it's all about priorities. So I think, you have to say no in order to get the most important things that you have to do during the day done. And that's just kind of all there is to it to me. Pretty straightforward.
Yep. I think as I've gotten further into leadership with my company, that there's a lot of people that have asks of you to do certain things, and they say, hey, can I get help with this? Can I get help with that? And early on, you want to help everyone with everything. Gary Vee calls it the yes virus. He actually had he had a short video on it 8 years ago. And he's like, the vaccine for the yes virus is saying no. It's like, duh. And one of his quotes is saying, when you're trying to say yes to everything, you end up doing nothing. And a lot of times I found myself saying I'd help with so many different things, I'd end up not knowing what was a priority. So I think it is, to Brad, your point, like you have to make things a priority and then figure out what you need to say no to.
Yeah. And to your point, finding that priority for you personally, and I think we've all, especially as we become, Brad, I've asked you to build like something at your shop, for just because you're my buddy and you have a fucking CNC machine. But, you have to say no to that shit because everybody's going to ask you. I'm sure you get that all the time. And, with Matt and I know that we get people that reach out and ask us, hey, can you take a look at my resume? And whenever I first started my business, I just wanted to help everybody. And I was saying yes to everything. And so, I learned the lesson the hard way where I was taking on any work that came my way. It wasn't a main focus. It wasn't down my niche. And my performance slacked because I was saying, like, to your point, saying yes to so many different things. And so finally I had to ask myself, like, if I'm going to do a certain activity or I'm going to say yes to something, does it bring me closer to my goal of whatever my goal is, whether it's for, a hobby like golf or whether it's for my business or whether it's for my family? Does whatever I said yes to, does that bring me closer to my goal? And like going bowling doesn't, so that's an easy no. If the answer is no, you should probably skip it. And, I think every situation has to have value in one way or another for you personally. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I love it. So I heard this and I wish I could give credit. I forgot because I listened to a couple podcasts and YouTube videos. But the big takeaway I got was there's really two maturing points when you say no, right? Or when you learn to say no. Number one is saying things that you don't want to. For me, I've never had a problem with this. I actually think I'm pretty selfish with my time, right? So it's like there's a lot of people who are people pleasers. They want to fill that role of the rescuer, or they just feel like they don't have a good enough excuse to say no, and they need an excuse in order to do that. Not really me, but I know there's people out there. The second level of maturity is saying no to things you do love, right? Like for me, with 75 Hard, that's why 75 Hard is so good for me. Like I fucking love partying. I love eating like shit, right? Like those are things that I love, and I know I'm not going to give up forever, but this is a good opportunity for me to give this shit up for 75 days and focus on better things, right? And I guess auditing the amount of time I was, I audited how much time I was taking up with volleyball. Like I fucking love volleyball so much. I'm just super competitive and I like competing. And then I realized I was spending 9 to 10 hours a week in leagues. So I'm giving all my leagues up besides one. I'm playing one night a week and then I'm training in the mornings when I can because it's too much. Like my business is way more important. My personal life is way more important. My reading, my self-development, all that stuff is more important. So I think that's kind of the second level of maturity. And then thinking about sacrifice, reframing that. Didn't Ben Newman talk about sacrifice and reframing?
Ben Newman and Jason Sugg both kind of have that, but they worded it in a different way.
Okay. So like looking at the 75 Hard thing, it's like, okay, am I giving up drinking or for 75 Hard, or am I giving myself a clearer mind to focus on the podcast, my health, and my business? Am I giving up volleyball? No, I'm being more intentional with when and how much I play. I can still get better at the sport, right? And still compete at a very high level, but I don't have to I don't have to be at a spot for 3 hours a night, 3 to 4 nights a week. You know what I mean?
And I think like something Dan's talked about before is like volleyball is like there's a ceiling there, right?
Yeah.
Like you're only going to go so far with volleyball, but with your self-development, your business, potentially this podcast, the ceiling is much higher.
Exactly.
So it's like you're just prioritizing your time. And
Oh.
that's what makes most sense.
Yeah, and it's what's going to get me further in life, right? Like I fucking love competing, and I want to be like Bobby and I played some 70-year-olds that ended up beating us literally
were, like,
in this
60.
tournament. They were old AVP players.
Bro,
Fucking
they were
Forrest
so
Gump.
So we
good.
could beat.
I
Matt
want to
and
be
Bobby.
that, but that's not going to fulfill.
They must not be that good.
We got
They
third.
talk all this shit, and then they come in here and
When
get
do we talk shit?
waxed by 70-year-olds.
Dude.
We're just not even going to try
Alright,
because
They were like 52 and 60.
Yeah, I kind of want to play you guys. Me and
Close
Brad
enough to
versus you two.
70.
Let's go.
I mean, these cats were fucking
They wouldn't even
agile.
get a time to fucking
they were
volley
fucking
it back.
They
So
were
they
fucking
went on
crafty.
to win. It was in the semifinals. They went on to win the championship against kids that were
Really?
younger than us, and they won
And
like
played in
30
college.
to 28 and played
played
in
in
college.
college.
These
are
old
two.
dudes were
These are two
studs.
former like AVP like pros.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sure.
we lost to some senior citizens. So
They're not listening to this podcast,
Um,
so we can say that.
but going-
sorry to any senior citizens out there.
They don't
We
know what a
believe-
podcast
We
is.
believe in you.
They don't know what the
You
fuck
can
a podcast
develop
is.
personally
They don't
and
know what-
hey, they're not going to
professionally.
listen. Fuck those guys. You know what?
Well, what about
If I
our
saw
senior
them,
citizens
I would
that
beat
are
their
listening?
motherfucking ass.
With their fucking cane.
Oh god, they
but
whooped our ass.
Like you're saying, Brad, just to kind of like go back in that for a second, my career, my self-development, my spirituality, my health, those things are going to carry me through life, and those have the greatest ceiling for me to continue getting better and better at.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I'm allowing myself by giving up those things. Dan, and you were talking about this already. So how do you know to you or anybody what you should and shouldn't say no to? Like, what are your guidelines and where do you draw the line?
Well, I think, I kind of answered that in terms of like, you asked me, hey, you want to be a part of this, it's so easy to say volleyball or golf or, one of these hobbies where, everybody's asking me to go play in a 4-man scramble. Well, that doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't, first off, everybody fucking cheats in those things, and it's usually not the greatest competition, and it doesn't help my golf game or anything. So, that's me saying no to that, whereas I'd rather go hit balls by myself or something. So, because that's more towards my goal, right? So I think that's the big thing is like, is this in lines with my personal goals? Does
Yep.
this help me? Because I can't, long term, I'm not going to be able to help anybody if I can't help myself first. And I love the metaphor with like when you're on an airplane and as soon as they start talking and they say, hey, if something happens, some crazy shit goes down, your mask's going to drop. And what do they say?
Put it on yourself first.
Put it on yourself first, because you can't help anybody around you unless you're taken care of first.
Yep.
And so I always reference that story, right? Like I have to hit my goals. And I think you see this with like, even, with Bill Gates, all the shit going on with him, but he's donated a fuck ton of money to across, the world really. And he couldn't do that if he didn't take care of himself first and build that wealth. And then he can deploy that wealth now that he's been able to hit all his goals, right? And so I'm not saying that I'm going to, be Bill Gates or anything, but I think that we all have these personal goals that if we hit those, it frees up our time to start to focus to help other people and bring them up to the top too. So,
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to like what we say we're all about. It's like if I'm not gonna grow from it, there's no sense in me doing it. Like even if I'm treading water in the same spot, it's not worth doing.
Yep.
Someone talked to me just today about doing so. I was talking about something going on that was putting me in an uncomfortable situation, just like professionally, but it was a growth moment. And I was talking about it, and he was like, it was a buddy of mine, and he was like, well, he's like, I don't know if you should do that. I don't know if like that'd be a comfortable move. And I said, fuck that. I go, dude. I was like, if you listen to our podcast, that's our slogan. I literally said this today. I was like, if you're not growing, you're dying. And if I feel uncomfortable, that means I'm about to experience a growth moment.
Yep.
Yeah, magic happens outside of those comfort zones.
and I think this can be applied to relationships too. Like if you're a relationship with an old friend from
Yep.
high school or whatever, like if they are no longer moving you towards your goals, it's a tough conversation or it's just a tough situation in general, but that's going to be a no for me, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at some point you have to start saying no to all these things and start, becoming more efficient with what you're doing and who you're spending time with or what you're spending your energy on. So.
Like Selk talked about, he's like, I don't go to high school reunions anymore because people think it's ridiculous that I've done all this stuff. They're like, you've written a book? Oh, you can do that? And then he's talking about how he doesn't attend those anymore. Like, I mean,
me
fuck
and
that.
Dan are
Say
for
no to
sure
shit.
going to our high school.
I'm bringing a fucking tiger.
We're gonna dress up like Lloyd Christmas, fucking Harry, fucking come rolling up in the Lambo.
I don't even know if I'd
Money
be invited
guns.
to mine. I don't even. What years do they do those? What, like 10 years?
Probably
That's
10.
Well,
past
we're supposed to have our
15.
15. We all, except Bobby, 06.
15 would be 33.
So
I wonder if I'll
that's
be
this
invited
year.
to mine. Yeah.
Well, I don't know with COVID. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, technically, like, I graduated, but, like, I almost didn't graduate. Like, they kicked me out because I failed a drug test, like, right at the end.
You got
So-
drug tested?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got drug
We've never
tested.
heard this.
Where'd you go to
story.
school?
No,
Well, so they didn't kick me
Why didn't I
out.
know this?
But what they did
the
is,
pretty
like,
boy.
Yeah.
oh, so it was like one of the last semesters.
Was it a hair test?
Before we graduated, my first test was a hair test.
That's why he's now bald.
Yeah, that's why he shaves his head.
That's why-
Fucking keep that shit
Yeah.
You
clean.
had to take my pubes.
I guess I didn't realize that. Yeah, I own my own business now. I guess I can grow the hair out and not worry about drug testing anymore.
As long as you don't care personally.
Yeah.
Don't drug test yourself.
So I got caught smoking weed my last semester, which I had already gotten caught once. And they were like, well, here's the deal. Like, you don't get to go to graduation. Like, you don't get to walk. We're going to give you the diploma and you're going to finish out. They're like, you're going to finish out at Notre Dame, which is an all-girls school.
What?
This sounds like a deal.
And you go to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for half days. So I'm like, wait a second. So you're gonna sit
So I
me with
got
a bunch of bunch of fucking chicks, right? First of all, tell me and I'm doing like elementary school shit. Like you could tell they had the real dumb people going here, because even I was like, we're all sitting there, right? And I'm like, fucking done. First person
Can I go
out.
home?
I beat you guys.
Yeah. So it'll be, I don't know, maybe they won't invite me, which if they don't, I'll just show up anyway, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Fuck it.
Cocaine's not on 75 hard. Remember that.
Cocaine, heroin, all the above.
Oh, Jesus.
Just make sure you finish your workouts first.
So just to kind of bring it back, so there was a guy I listened to. So we're talking about like how to draw the lines, how to know when to say no. And on the opposite, like don't take this and use this as I should say no to everything and be kind of a big pussy about things. So this guy named Evan Carmichael talked about knowing the difference between something that goes against your core values or something against your like trying to move towards, as opposed to a limiting belief, right? So if you say like, okay, this goes against like, this doesn't push the needle in my business, my personal, my spiritual, or whatever your goals are, one thing. If you're looking at something and you're like, well, I've never done this before, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. But if you really dig down and you're like, well, this could move my business forward, it's like, don't use that as an excuse to say no to that stuff. Like still say yes to things that are going to push you out.
Right.
of
Like,
your
don't say
comfort zone.
no out of fear.
Right.
Say no because it doesn't align with your goals.
Yes.
Don't listen to your bitch voice.
But that made me like, I don't know if you guys have this. Like, I want to dive into more of like, I've been on like a big why and like purpose kick lately. I want to dive into core values of myself, because I feel like if you have those core values, then your no and yes is so easy, right? Because
Right.
then it just goes right back to it.
That was easily one of the biggest things I took away from walking around First Form headquarters was the core values. And I've been trying to think of how can I apply that into my place of business and myself, because you just saw how clean that fucking place was, and everybody it was almost cultish, you know?
Yeah.
And
It was impressive.
that's like, I want to build that type of culture at my business, and it's only me and two other guys. But I'm just thinking long term. You know, if you instill that from the ground floor, it's just going to stay there all the way up.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100%, Matt. Like, as soon as you establish your core values, it's so everything's so black and white. Does this align or does it not align? And if it does, I'll say yes. If it doesn't, I'll say no. And then you can start to attack the process more than anything.
Yep.
Where you're taking emotion out of those decisions.
If especially like Matt talked earlier about auditing just everything that you were spending time on, if you did the math on that, you'd probably be just shocked at how many days you would have back with this. Because I just did this math just 2 days ago. I was talking to my dad, and I'm coming up on a year of no alcohol. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I looked at was it asked how much time have you saved? So I have this app, I Am Sober, and I typed in the date that I was and how much time I think I wasted on a given day. And it was 12 hours. And that's probably being conservative, because if I started drinking at lunch, I lost the rest of that day and I lost the next morning. There were probably times where I was losing 18 hours a day. So on an average of 12 hours a day at 329 days of no drinking, I have saved 3,948 hours, which equates to 164 days that I've gotten back in less than a year.
So what have you done to push the ball forward then?
So that's the thing. I would say this, like physical and mental health has something that's really taken something that I really needed to focus on. So that has been the forefront of my priorities. I will say this, and I even said this to you guys before, like how impressed I am with where you guys are at with your businesses. That's where I want to be able to take mine to the next level. So I've told people, hey, in this last year, I feel like I've gotten 3 years back. So if you can, my point in this is if you audit what you're spending time on, like Matt said, and what you're saying no to, and then figuring out what your time is saved there, a whole year for you might feel like it's 3-5 years in one.
But that's the compound effect at work, right? And so by saying no, the compound effect can kick in, and you don't even have to really take any other actions other than saying no to some things, like social media for a lot of people. I mean, look at your screen time. How many hours a day are you on your phone? And so just by saying no to that, you don't even have to fucking put anything into action, and you're moving forward towards your goals because you said no to alcohol, or you said no to social media or whatever.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's an interesting concept.
So, and I think this will be interesting. Everybody has a different answer, because I think everybody's got personalities that are way on opposite ends of the spectrum on this. But how do you say no the right way? And why is it hard to say no sometimes? If I had to go out on a limb, I'm going to say Brad does not have a problem with saying no.
Actually, I was really bad at it. It wasn't until just recently, because when I was starting my business, I said yes to everything, like Dan said, because I had to. I would do 1-off, 2-off pieces, and
Well, it feels like a win.
Yeah, it
like
does
in
at the
business,
time,
it's
yeah.
like, hey, you want to work with me? Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. It feels like a win when really you're setting yourself up for a loss.
For sure.
Yeah, so recently, I've had some people who have called and said, "Hey, I need a custom part made," and I said, a year ago, I would have taken this job on 100%, but right now, I don't have the time to do it. I can't take the time out of my day to dedicate to one thing like that. So I think the more honest you are with people when you say no, the more appreciative of it they are, and the more likely they are to continue to do business with you in the future for other items, because they're like, you know what? He didn't tell me he was going to do it, and then it took fucking 2 months.
Yep.
Well, I think it's also kind of like a hard to get type situation because like to continue that, I've told clients, they've wanted 100% commission only salespeople. I was like, I don't take that work on because I can't do 100% when I have all this other shit going on. Just like you can't take that work on because you have all this other shit going on. I really want to work with you, but I'm not going to sit here and sell you some dream that I won't be able to fulfill. And they appreciate the fact that you were honest with them. And so to me, that's worked. And I actually was wondering how to say no.
I think that's good, because people are attracted to honesty and vulnerability, and that vulnerability can come off as a word that's kind of negative, but if you're just completely blunt with, hey, this is why I can't do this, if you communicate that well, there's nothing wrong with it. And if there's someone who reacts poorly to that, they have some serious problems with the boundaries that you're setting. If you set boundaries and expectations for yourself and someone's upset with that, then they're probably not a person that you want to have in your circle.
Yeah.
Did you want to say it? Because I was going to say, so, for me, my thing is always just honesty with like, no, I can't do it, and here's why, and I'll give them a reason. But I wanted to dig further because I didn't know how I was saying no is the right way, because I can be kind of blunt sometimes.
Do you want to role play?
No, but I looked up an article from Entrepreneur Magazine, and it was basically how to say no. So be quick, tell the person you can't do it, and politely decline right away, instead of like dragging on, oh, let me check my schedule. You know what I mean? Just fucking rip the Band-Aid off and say no.
Yep.
Be honest was on there, so I guess I checked that box. Explain that you have other commitments or why you can't do it. Suggest an alternative. I like that. So maybe I can't do it, but maybe Matt can look at your resume. So
next person I get.
or ask for a rank checks. Like sometimes, hey, I just have too much shit going on. Right now I can't do it, but hit me up for that golf tournament next year or whatever.
Yeah, I was actually listening to Tim Ferriss was interviewing Kevin Hart, and Kevin Hart obviously is blown the fuck up. And
Not in his height. but-
Well, yeah, not in his height, but in
I'm tall.
in his entire
Damn.
fucking in his entire business, acting, stand-up comedy, like everything else that he's doing. I know he's got some side ventures. I actually see him on Instagram ads for like athletic apparel. But he talked about like, then this is more like in your personal life, because obviously if it's a client, you want to let them down, and you don't ever want to be mean to somebody that you say no to, but just a simple like getting over the fact that you don't owe anyone anything, right? Like getting over the fact that like who gives a fuck if you're going to piss somebody off, but just say like, I appreciate the invite, but I'm not going to make it. Or no, I don't have time for it. It's just really not a priority to me, right? And not look for this excuse that like you have to come up with this elaborate thing as to why you can't do it. Just like, I think the biggest thing is getting over that hurdle of just like saying no and understanding that you're probably not important enough for anybody to really give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And if you are, and if somebody does get butthurt about it, it's like, what kind of person is that anyway? Like
Well,
if you say,
right,
hey,
that's
listen,
on
like
them.
you're my friend, like, hey, I gotta go read. I gotta fucking prepare for a podcast. I gotta work like over the weekend to produce for this client. If that's the type of friend that's actually pissed off at you, pretty safe to say like they just audited your circle for you.
Yeah. I mean, you can't make everybody happy. And I look at it as there's different levels of people. There's people who do want to become something. And, that there is a sacrifice that's happening right now in my life that, in 5 to 10 years, I'm going to be looking at them and they're going to be in the exact same spot.
Yep.
Like just because like that's where they're at. There's no growth that can happen there. Where with us, it's kind of, exponential. Anything can happen if you put the work down to it.
For sure. Yep. So these questions go hand in hand. What are some things that you've struggled with past and saying no to? I think you guys already talked to that. I'm going to just hop to the next question unless you guys have something for that specifically.
No, I think we all touched on that.
Okay.
Pretty good.
So the one I had is there anything in particular that you wish you would say no or yes to more right now?
I know what mine should be, and I always talk about it, is I need to dedicate more time to just my wife.
Family?
Which, yeah, not even family, because I spend tons of time with my kids. It's just like I need to like break away, take the wife out to dinner.
Yeah. I'll babysit your kids if you want to.
Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Were you hoping that he was going to say no to
I
that?
thought he'd be
that
like,
should
fuck
be
no.
that should be the
anybody-
punishment for Matt.
Yeah, if
one
anybody
day.
ever like
Maybe.
You have to
offers
watch
to
all of our
babysit
kids.
a kid, like I don't think any parent ever says no.
Like, you don't care what the
Unless
prereqs
they're
are.
like
as long
newborns
as
and
they're
they're
alive
brand
when I
new.
get back, it's all
We have a
good.
situation where like we dropped our kids off one time and we're still like, holy fuck, did we really do that?
Really? You just needed
It
somebody.
was this like trampoline park. And they're like, oh, drop your kids off on Friday nights and from
Dan's like,
6
"See ya."
6 to 9 p.m. And we drop fucking like
Oh my God.
3, 5, and 8-year-old off. Went out. We still are like, what the fuck? They could have got trapped under the fucking bricks or whatever.
Oh my God. Hey, when you need that time, you need that time. Risk was worth it, right?
Your brain's just not functioning
Say-
at that point.
so you're gonna say
You
yes.
didn't give yourself
You
any
make-
oxygen.
You
His
make
other
poor
head was thinking-
decisions.
Yeah.
in
So, Brad, you
desperation.
need to say yes to more of those chances to take your
Yeah.
kids to a trampoline
I'm
park.
not a problem with that. The old lady would have a problem with that one.
Right. So this one's kind of a real-ish one for me. It's spent. I mean, it is real. It's spending. So I've got really. I actually pride myself. I'm way like I talked about like how I was a fucking idiot. I got in all that debt when I was younger. And how like my spending habits are way better. And I've actually pride myself on I've got good systems. I've got buckets. I've got money that goes into my real estate account. I've got money that goes into my long-term investments. I've got a short-term savings that I can spend on like vacations or whatever, right? But my income is very inconsistent. And so sometimes I will make more money. And so if I don't take the time to put that and stack it, I'll end up spending it, right?
Yeah.
So I hit like my goals or whatever because I know how much money I want to do, but it's like I know I could be saving so much more fucking money. And like honestly, like Bobby, like talking about what you're doing, I fucking love it. Like with the tracking your shit. Dan, we always talk about like how much success that you have and you fucking ride around in a goddamn hoopty, right? And that's but that's something like you're fucking proud of. You're like,
Well, that's
I will
because
always
my newer car is still being worked
in the
on.
shop. Yeah.
How? That has been months.
But it's
Can't get fucking parts.
but it's like, but you know, you've got this mantra of
Ferraris
like,
are hard to get parts.
yeah.
Dude, it's a limited edition fucking
Extended
brake-
cab Ferrari.
One of one.
brake caliper.
Dude. What kind of car is it again? It's a fucking
Ferrari 488.
yeah, that's
Pista.
it. Yeah, it's taken a little bit. So,
Italy's
Straight
really
from Italy.
behind on fucking production.
COVID hit them hard.
It's a Mini Cooper.
but you've got that mantra like I'll always make more money than I'll spend, and you've got that goal. And Brad, like you seem like the type of guy that is just like has holes buried in his backyard.
Yeah,
Just
I'm like
fucking
the most
He's got
spiritual guy in
jars.
the world.
Yeah. So
If
it's
Brad dies, hit up his backyard with a fucking with a metal detector.
metal detector, some shovels, and fucking
Like
get
Cousin
to work.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's something that like I'm kind of again I'm doing. I know I'm doing better than most in the world, but like I know I could be doing way fucking better. So a goal of mine this year like is to fucking stack paper, and that's going to be required. That's going to require me to say no a ton, right? That's trips. That's like sometimes like I have to pay to play volleyball for like tournaments and shit. That's nights out. The little shit at the gas station that just adds up incrementally, right? But I know that saying no to those things surrounding spending money, well, it's not only going to force me to save more, but I feel like inadvertently it's going to turn on my internal thermometer to where it's like, I want to keep doing these fucking fun things, so I need to go out and fucking make more.
Well, and I think, so you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Years ago.
Okay, so I mean, everything you're saying seems like you just need to read that book again because
Okay.
like what he talks about in there is like people who stay in the low to middle class are the people who they make more money, and then what do? They spend more money.
Mhm.
So instead of like what you're saying, like if you want to spend the money, put it towards something that's going to make you money,
Yep.
like what you already did with buying real estate.
Mhm.
So that's where the make your money work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole financial thing is two things. It's make more than you spend, and Jay-Z said if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. So
Yep.
with cash.
Right.
So those are the only two things I live by.
It's good advice.
I don't even
Thanks,
have a
Jay-Z.
personal credit card.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're a little bit of a trap. There's like, because obviously, I mean, if you are really good with your money, there are a ton of rewards and there's a ton of benefits to having a credit card to rack up these points to get free trips and stuff. But there's so many statistics out there that people say, like people spend on average like 20-something%, and this is from Dave Ramsey, up to 20-something% more on credit cards just because they'll justify in their head like, oh, well, I'm getting points for it.
Yeah.
So
Pay
if that's
later.
the case, it's like not fucking worth it because you're spending way more than your
Yeah.
points, your travel ever would be.
Exactly.
So for me, in terms of like, is there anything I wish I'd say no or yes more to? For sure, on the yes side, it's a personal thing. It's not like other people asking for my time or anything like that, but it's like saying yes to the things I don't really want to do that I know are required for my growth. I do say yes to a lot of those, but sometimes I don't, And I don't think anybody says it. Maybe fucking the top guys like Ed or Andy Frisella or whoever, like maybe they say yes to all the hard shit all the time, but I think that we could all do better there. So that's it's a personal one.
Yep.
I've gotten pretty good at saying no, but because I've learned my lesson so many times, it's like trying to please everybody. you
Right.
know? So
Yeah, I feel like I was definitely, I mean, for me, as far as something that I'd like to say no or yes to more, I feel like right now I've been saying yes to so much that is focused around like my health and things like that, where like I do feel like professionally, like I have an opportunity to grow with all of the time that I'm giving myself back. So I want to say yes to more things that are going to make me uncomfortable to grow. To pinpoint that, I mean, it could be, I don't want to say networking because honestly, I don't really love networking too much. Like it's fun to go out and do stuff, but a lot of times people are out there passing around business cards. So I think I'd want to say yes to trying to have harder conversations with big time either clients or brokers to try and further along my business. So something that I should be doing anyways, but something that's not a huge focus right now. So that's a big thing that I'd like to improve on.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, kind of just going off of that, Bobby, you talk about like the personal health. Obviously, you're doing 75 hard. Obviously, that's been a really good distraction for you as you were like getting sober and you made leaps and bound changes. And now you're at a point where you're like, I'm happy when I want to keep going, but you want to shift to the business side. So it's like, you're not saying you're going to just let yourself go from a physical standpoint, but to say no to some of those things so that you can put those yeses on the business to move the needle with that.
Exactly.
Cool. That's all I got. You guys got anything else before we close up? Oh, we do have, before we get to the OnlyFans question, do we have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Our OnlyFans inquiry. Brad, what do we got?
So this is this is from somebody that we're gonna go to our high school reunion with.
Oh,
Yeah. So this is must be one of our biggest fans. Jeff Zelinovich. He
What
wants
up,
to
Jeff?
know, most people have a difficult time delaying gratification. They want immediate results, immediate money, immediate success. Immediately fill in the blank. Most people don't see the sacrifice or the delayed gratification of the truly successful. So my question, what techniques do you use to improve your ability to delay gratification?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to start it off, Dan?
I mean,
I already
For
know
me-
what Dan's going to say.
you do because
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm fucking say. I'm
I
just
think when I
trying,
say it, he'll be like, yeah, that's what I was going to say.
trying to come up with something here.
I think Dan's going to say to be 1% better every single day.
yeah, I
Compound
mean,
effect. It's literally exactly what you're
right?
talking
Yeah,
about.
I mean, it's the 1.01 to the 365th power. Getting better every day. But I was gonna say also, living under your means, and yeah, you had a great month. That doesn't mean every month's going to be great. Are you a one hit? These are questions I ask myself. Are you a one hit wonder, or is this something sustainable? And so, keeping myself in check kind of delays that gratification, and always setting my bar higher and higher. Like, hey, once I hit this, then I can go and have a little fun, and then that bar goes higher, and that bar goes higher, and I do have fun. I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not just like never having fun, but I think that kind of delays the gratification because I've set my mind to just always, putting that carrot one more,
Yeah.
foot in front of my face. So
Yeah, I like that. And then I think it's almost a good opportunity to kind of talk about what we were saying earlier, and that's purpose. I guess let me backtrack for a second, right? So when we talk about like how do we get out of that mindset of like delayed gratification or just like wanting everything right now, we talked about this a few podcasts ago, but it's like if you had everything you wanted right now, like literally you could dream up any success, anything that you would want, your life would be fucking boring.
For sure.
Like
Right.
life would, we would be,
if you had nothing to chase,
we would be,
it would suck.
we would be fucking
What's the
cogs
point?
on a wheel, right? So it sounds cliche, and I have to work on this every day, but it starts with attacking and loving the process, right? So it starts with loving what you're like, actually enjoying what you're doing, and then behind that is the purpose, because I'm still working on like what that is for me. But the whole concept is like if you have a purpose, if you have a big, whether it's material or otherwise, a why, then the mundane shit becomes a lot easier to do, and you do it with more excitement and you don't get burnt out as much, right? So I think it starts with having a purpose, then getting into enjoying the day-to-day, understanding that, Dr. Selk, this is like love the mundane. Like you have to do this mundane shit day in and day out because that's what's going to get you to the result of whatever it is the fuck that you want. So I think being able to enjoy those day-to-day will kind of get you out of that mentality. Not out of it, but it'll kind of help the mentality of I need to fix everything and I need everything I want right now.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with you too, but maybe a little bit different flow to it is that you have to appreciate the journey. Like you have to appreciate where you've come. So for me, like, yeah, you have your big goal that's painted way, way high that you'll probably never actually reach. But along that way, you've got little goals that you can hit along the way. And you look at that as that's your gratification of, okay, well, I've done this.
Yep.
Well, where's the next one? Like Dan's saying, and then you hit that. And you always have something to work for farther down the line instead of like, oh, well, I hit it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got to have something else.
For sure.
And so, like you were saying, hey, attack the process, but also love the process, right? Because you have to, trust the process. You said love the process, trust the process,
Yep.
right? So I think a lot of people start something and they don't trust it long enough. Hey, I'm not seeing results, so I'm just going to quit now, right? And so if they don't get that instant gratification, they just quit. And then I think another thing to look at is, reinvesting versus taking. I think that the businesses, especially during COVID, if you look at restaurants, and I could be wrong in a lot of cases, but I think that some they were living by the cash that was flowing in on a nightly basis, and they weren't putting any money in the bank, and they weren't saving for those slow times. Or you see a lot of people who maybe start construction companies, and then they see a little bit of money and they just take all that money and they go buy their new truck or whatever. And Brad, you do a really good job with this, where you could go out and buy a brand new fucking Denali, whatever, but instead you reinvest in your business, because that's going to create more cash long term, and you can have 5 trucks or whatever. So I think that people take from their business, and it's a living and breathing thing, or they take from them from pay yourself first type thing. That's what needs to happen. And some people just don't do that. They would rather go out and buy the fucking Louis Vuitton or whatever the fuck, And so the longer you can delay that, the more set up you're going to be able to have those things down the road.
Yep. And so I just want to say one more thing, because it came to me as Brad was talking about these little wins, like setting little milestones for yourself and then like going in with the mentality to crush them. Like one thing that I've been doing over the past month and a half is, Dan knows I'm on this project with one of my clients to build out a sales team for him. Like I set in my mind, like I'm going to fucking kill this. I'm not making the most money I've ever made off these people. Like it's probably sucking some other opportunities, but I was like, I just want to fucking win, to say like, I fucking killed this. And I'm like absolutely dominating it. Like I'm doing such a good job for them. I'm doing such a good job for the candidates. We might have 4 candidates of 10 fall out because of like non-compete issues. I'm not even fucking worried about it. So it's like, even though this isn't going to make my fucking nut, like it isn't going to like change the course of my career, like the fact that I'm going to have this stamp of approval and I'm going to have this on my like whatever, like this notch on my bedpost of like, I fucking killed it when I set out to kill it, and I've been working like a ton of hours on it, is such a fucking rewarding feeling. Like I had to go back to that because it had been a while since I really felt like that. And so having those little milestones and then going in, Ed Milet said it best, like winning is more fun than fun is fun. Like that fucking feeling of like you were just killing it and dominating, and in that flow is more fun to me than ever fucking a recreational volleyball league would ever be.
Right. And that whole quote, which I love if you think about it, because if you say it, you really have to think about it before you get it.
Yep.
And it all has to do with saying no to, to fun in order to win.
Yep.
And that's more fun than the fun that you had on a fucking Tuesday night at the bar or whatever. Right. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
I quit listening after Matt said notch it in bedposts. And I was like, I wonder how many notches he has.
I wonder how tall his bedposts are.
I'm just a notch in your bedpost.
Guys, we're
just a
actually
line in a
coming up on
song.
We're coming up on time here. So
How many bedposts does he have?
How many beds?
all right. On that note,
He's got 14-foot ceilings.
we appreciate you listening. Keep getting at us about the OnlyFans inquiries. I felt like this is a fucking like first time we've all been back, and we flowed pretty well. This is going to be good shit, and it's probably a little bit longer than we normally go, but we had a lot to talk about. Really good content. We appreciate you guys listening, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
See you guys.
Deuces.
Later.